better tool that we can use is waist circumference. And of course, not always perfect. The World Health Organization defines your waist a little bit higher than the National Institute of Health. Long story short though, we're looking for men 40 inches or less, women 35 inches or less. That is just simply because of visceral fat. So people who carry their fat in their midsection, that fat will squeeze the internal organs, but also the location of that fat empties into the portal vein. It's not healthy overall. No one tool is going to be perfect, but it's better than BMI. So weight. The thing I wish everyone knew is that weight is not static. What you are right now, if you hopped on the scale right now, your weight would be much heavier than it was this morning. So your weight changes throughout the day. You can gain up to about 7 pounds throughout the day due to hormonal shifts, due to hydration status, due to the foods that you eat, exercise as well, especially exercise. Because when you work out, you end up breaking down the proteins in your muscles, and then your body has to repair those muscles, so you end up going through an inflammatory response. So, you know when you go to the gym, they talk about having that pump? That's basically an inflammatory response to help you repair your muscles. So, long story short, if you are trying to get the most accurate weight, you want to get it first thing in the morning, right after going to the bathroom, before eating or drinking anything. That's the most accurate weight. So if you go to your doctor at like 3 p.m., you hop on the scale and the person weighing you is like, boy, you've actually gained a couple pounds since the last time you were here. Just put it out of your mouth. Unless it was first thing in the morning, it's not an accurate weight. What I call the triangle of health. If you Google triangle of health, there's a million different ones out there. This is mine. Nutrition, exercise, and sleep. I think these are the 3 important things for health. Of course, nutrition, but sleep often gets left out of the equation. Of course, as college students, we're not getting a lot of sleep, but sleep is incredibly important for overall health eating and also for overall mental health too. Sleep is wildly important, so I'm definitely going to talk about sleep and how it relates to your weight and all that. Calorie needs. So, back up. I feel like it's important to talk about calories because there's a lot of misconceptions about calorie intake, and this is where some of that diet culture, some of that New Year's marketing can really get you. So let me talk about what a calorie is. Calories are energy. So if you're looking at a label, if you're looking at, I can't think of a food right now, I have a Gatorade bottle, and it says 240 calories on there, it basically means 240 units of energy. So calories are energy. We need a certain amount of calories per day for our bodies to function. So our organs to function, for us to breathe, for our hair to grow at night, all the little things that you don't even think about that your body's doing, we need calories for that. And essentially, the average body needs about 1,200 calories a day to function. That's not like sitting at your desk. That's like a comatose person, at least 1,200 calories a day. Unless it's a very small older woman, then it might be a little less. But I say that because 1,200 calories, for whatever reason, has been co-opted by these diet sellers as the amount of calories people need. So a lot of times when people come into me for nutrition counseling, they'll say to me like, I know I need to eat 1,200 calories a day, but I just can't do it. Like I don't have the willpower. And I'm looking at them and I'm like, there's no way you're gonna be able to eat 1,200 calories a day and walk out of this room. Like you need more than that. And I'll get to that calculation, but we need more than 1,200 calories. Weight maintenance, our body's pretty good at maintaining the weight that it is. That's when the calories that we eat match the calories that we burn. Weight gain happens when the calories that we eat are more than what we burn throughout the day. And then of course, weight loss is when our calories are less than what we burn throughout the day. Calories are less. Yeah. So let me talk a little bit about metabolism, and then I'll get to that calorie calculation, how you can figure it out yourself. So your metabolism is a series of chemical reactions that converts food into energy. So I'm sure you've heard people say like, oh, my metabolism sucks, it's so sluggish, you just can't lose weight. That can be true. It can actually ruin your metabolism. But most people, you can get your metabolism on track. The metabolic rate is the speed at which your body burns energy. So this is your total energy expenditure, like your whole metabolic rate. So this is what your body's doing. So this orange section is called your basal metabolic rate. This is, again, the boring stuff that your body's doing. So it's, having your lungs breathe. It's making new red blood cells. It's growing fingernails. Like, it's everything that your body's doing if you were in a comatose state. That's your BMR. It's most of your metabolic rate. We have very little influence over our BMR. Someone who's taller is going to have a higher BMR than someone who's shorter. Men tend to have a bigger BMR than women do. Older people have a smaller BMR than younger people do. One thing we can influence, though, with BMR is our muscle mass. So your muscles burn more calories than fat does. So if you're strength training and you're building up that muscle mass, you can slightly increase this BMR. So at rest, you're burning more calories than if you didn't have that muscle mass. So that's kind of the one thing we have control over. Next up, I love this one. The next one is the thermic effect of food. When you eat food, your body has to break it down, absorb it, and transport it. And you need calories to do that. So the mere act of eating food burns calories in and of itself. If you eat a massive meal, you can't really expand it. It's always going to be about 10%. But I just love the idea that eating will help you burn calories. Next up is exercise. So this light blue is the NEAT. So the non-exercise activity thermogenesis. Basically, that's like fidgeting. That's like picking up your phone and looking at it. That's non-exercise activity that you're doing. Getting up, walking to the bathroom, coming back. The small part up at the top is the one we have the most influence on. That's exercise. So that can be bigger, that can be smaller. But yeah, this is what makes up your metabolic rate. So how many calories you're burning throughout the day. And again, when people say like, oh, I have a bad metabolism, I don't know. I always like to dive into that a little bit more. People who are chronic dieters, like people who do crash diets all the time, they can really slow this metabolic rate. That's actually a thing that can happen. But for the most part, your metabolic rate is kind of trucking along. It is determined by genetics. I mean, some people do just have a really great metabolic rate, and some people don't. So it's interesting. But the good news is that we can influence this by exercise and by our muscle mass. Figuring out your calorie needs. I'm not always the biggest fan of like doing a calorie calculation. It's not for everyone, but I think sometimes it can be helpful to clear up what your calorie needs are. For example, like some people come into my office and they're like 1,200 calories, I know that's what I need, and I'm like, no, you need 2,000 actually. So sometimes it can be helpful. It's a very complex equation. In your packet, I included the link to a website that'll do it for you. Much easier. This is the equation. For weight stuff, I use an equation called Midland-St. Jeor. It's the most accurate when we're talking about weight needs. What it is, it takes this into account, like your height, your weight, your age, and then you multiply it by an activity factor. So if you you are sedentary, if you're sitting most of the day, you use 1.2, if you have light activity, so on and so on.